start whenever.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's election day, and millions of Americans across the United States are about to cast their ballots for the next president. But that's not entirely true. The process is a bit complicated due to a system called the Electoral College. Basically, to sum up the Electoral College, it's a group of 538 people that determine essentially who the next president of the United States is going to be. Those 538 people consist of 100 senators and 438 representatives in Congress. These 538 votes are not given to the people, but instead are given to the states. Each state gets 2 senators and 1 representative to start with, no matter how big or no matter what the population is. The rest of the representatives are roughly filled in to the population. So the more people a state has, the more electoral votes it should get. So when you go to the polls, you're really not voting for the president directly. You're really just telling the state how it should use its votes. 48 out of the 50 states today give all of their electoral votes to the winner of the election. For example, which California has 55 electoral votes. If the candidate wins in California, no matter how much of the lead it could be by 1% or 90%, all the votes go to that candidate. The candidate that lost, it could be 49%, but they don't matter anymore. They're gone. So it's a winner-take-all system. So instead of just having one election, you're really having 50 individual elections. And my claim is that the Electoral College distorts the election process. It does so in 3 key ways. The first problem with the Electoral College is that it depresses voter turnout. According to Alexander Kesar, a history and social science professor at Harvard, states that I think there is no doubt the Electoral College suppresses voter turnout, that there are X percentage of people who do not participate in elections because they know their vote will not matter in terms of presidential elections. And there is no incentive for minority voters to go to the polls because their vote is seen as a waste. And states have no reason to push minority voters because no matter how many vote, the electoral votes stay the same. Even if you're not in the minority, there's still a chance that the Electoral College will not vote for what the public wants. They will vote for what they believe is right. And there's no law that tells them that they have to vote for what you want, or what the public wants, I should say. The second problem with the Electoral College is that the loser of the popular vote can win the electoral vote. What this means is that most of the country would vote for one candidate, but instead the other becomes president. And it's likely. It's happened 3 times, and just recently with George W. Bush. With the Electoral College, it's possible for a candidate to receive as little as 21% of the popular vote and still get elected president. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with what happened in 2000, but George W. Bush was elected president over Al Gore. And basically, all of the United States was waiting for one state to get their work straight, and that was Florida. And it caused lawsuits for recounts. It was a huge mess. And it showed a huge fault in the electoral system. Before this election, people forgot that their vote really didn't mean much in the long run. And it caused, so when he was elected, it caused a huge mess. And it was just, basically, it was a huge waste of time and money that could have been put to a better use. Okay, the third problem with the Electoral College is that it causes significant overrepresentation of small states. For instance, a vote in Wyoming would equal 4 votes in California, and a vote in Vermont would equal 3 votes in Texas, according to the 2010 census figures. The Electoral College essentially pretends that fewer people live where they do and more people live where they don't. So many would argue that the Electoral College, say that this is how small states keep their representation against big states, so candidates won't just ignore them. But if that's the case, then the Electoral College is failing miserably. Candidates rarely visit more than 16 out of 40 states on their presidential campaign, and only a small fraction of the states have a small population, so the argument is irrelevant. Others would say that the Electoral College establishes that candidates will only spend their time in large cities. Logically, that's not possible. The combined population of the top 10 biggest cities, so New York, LA, Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia, Phoenix, San Antonio, San Diego, Dallas, and San Jose, all those combined only account for 8% of the US population. Even if you add the next top 90 cities in the US, that still doesn't reach 20%. So logically, that's not possible. No one's ever going to win an election just visiting the major cities. So overall, the Electoral College depresses voter turnout, it gives possibility of a president being elected without the popular vote, and it causes significant overrepresentation of small states. Thank you.
All right, Stephen, I like the visualization that you have at the beginning in the introduction. You've got a solid background on the Electoral College and explained it. There was a little bit of language issue that I think sounded like you were conflating the representatives in Congress and the senators as the electors. It's just that it's the number of electors that are represented by the number of senators and representatives, and so that was maybe a little bit confusing and could have been clearer. But otherwise, I thought you had a very good explanation of what the Electoral College was. I did feel a little bit like that took up almost a third of the speech, and that meant that some of the things that you were talking about later on that are criticisms were not getting as developed as they could be. Although you had pretty good evidence on each point, I think that you could use a little bit more. The voter suppression one, well, we talked about that a little bit the other day, you know, some data to back it up. Right now, you're relying just on the opinion of these experts, and I think there are probably cases where you've had that very sort of thing where people see that their vote isn't going to matter much, so they don't show up. And that's always what, for example, political pundits are always worried about that. If you have a weak national candidate, then that suppresses the vote for people down on the down the ticket in that political party. So if the Republican candidate looks like don't have any chance of winning, and Republicans don't show up, that means that down on below on the ticket, the people running for Congress or assemblyman or senator or governor, any of those sorts of things, they're going to get fewer votes as a consequence because people don't come out for the presidential election that's going on at the same time. And there's plenty of stuff that talks about that kind of thing. So it seems like you're just missing an opportunity to really strengthen that argument by not having some data to back it up in addition to the quote that you have. I thought your explanation on the third point was a little bit better, and that you had some pretty good statistical information on that. I also got that kind of preemptive argument where you're responding to what the criticism from the other side might be. I thought you did a pretty good job coming up with an answer on that. The material is well organized once you get to it, but there's no preview of what the structure is going to be at the beginning of the speech. However, there was a very nice summary at the end of the speech, so I thought that helped fix that a little bit as well. Your vocal delivery is okay, yet you are reading a little bit more than you would like, but the language sounds good. That part is positive. All right, thank you.